on your mind, we will try to discuss it, put it out here, make questions, answers, and really create a nice discussion. Today I have with me my fellow friend and instructor, Maca. Maca, where are you from, Maca?
I'm from Chile, South
Chile.
America.
Oh la la. Okay, tell us about yourself, Maca.
Well, my name is Maca. Let's say Maca. I'm from Chile. I'm a scuba instructor since 2 years. I did my course with you. And I did work in Egypt for almost 2 years. And now I'm in Morocco. And I'm very happy to be here with you, sharing this experience. And it's a very nice way to still be connected with the scuba diving world, even if I'm locked down.
And what are you doing in Morocco, Maca?
Right now, you mean? I cannot do too much things, but now I'm studying some things. I'm studying French. I came here to learn French because I wanted to speak 3 languages to go one step more in the scuba diving world, to be able to work in different countries and speak different languages is always a good thing.
That's always a good thing, of course.
Yeah.
You know what? Since I've been starting the session and I'm having this really terrible headache. I don't know what's going on with it. Been trying to. Any idea what's wrong? Yeah. Any idea what will be? What?
Did you drink enough water today?
Not yet. I'm trying on it, but.
Okay, try to drink. Did you sleep well?
Not really. I've been trying to sleep, but not that well. But it's you know this kind of headache that gets you here, and it doesn't want to go.
Yeah. Try to drink water and wait a few minutes, and let's see how it goes.
Still here.
Did you eat?
Guys, do you have any idea what could possibly the headache is from? Anyone on the chat, maybe you can tell us?
Blood pressure.
Ahmed.
Try
to do this. I don't know if you can see me. Hold your.
I can see you.
Hold your eyebrows.
Yeah.
Out and together a little bit. See if that helps a little bit.
Like this?
Like try to pull them away from your face.
Okay. They will go out?
Out, away from your face, and together a little bit. It actually helps. It works a lot for this way.
Okay.
I can't keep the mic closed.
Coffee is fine. I would like to have some coffee, but no one is helping me out here. So really, that's a good idea. Any other ideas, guys? It's really the headache is really killing me.
Do you have any problems with your sinus?
No, I'm not diving, so sinus is not. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, you guys, for the lovely ideas. I really loved it. And this is exactly what's happening with air consumption with you and diving. You would have suddenly a problem, and it would actually go down, put it down in the freezer while 5 minutes and put it around your neck. I would definitely do that, Spyro. I love this one more than coffee. I would definitely do that. So air consumption is quite, in my opinion, is like a headache in all the minds of your divers. You would have the air consumption problem, and you would want to have a certain final answer. Okay, you have bad consumption because of this, because of that. But no, you guys gave me water, sleep, coffee, fancy eyebrows, exercise. Okay, the freezing towel on your neck, and actually could be paracetamol. Yes, could be any of the medication you could do. There is plenty of things, and it could be actually much more. Could be much more. And then air consumption is very similar. What we'll try to do on this session, that we will try to go through with you and put your hand on some of the points, the most ones that will actually be hurting your air consumption. You could have 1, you could have 2, you could have more. And then it's a trial and error thing. You would have to try some different things that you're doing. You would need to try some new tricks and see what's going to work for you. Okay, so the things that we're going to talk about, mainly the first thing is actually the mindset. So you need to adjust your mindset. You need to think about it in a certain way. And then you need to look at your buoyancy. You need to look at your movement. And then you need to look at the breathing techniques, which happen to be Maca's specialty. So that's why we're having Maca with us today. And she will be really helping us with the nice tricks and nice exercises in breathing. Okay. Mindset, Maca, what do you think of the mindset? Which mindset would actually help divers to start to have a good air consumption, or what?
Well, in my experience with my students, I always say, like, guys, just relax. I understand that the underwater is not your environment. It's a new thing for you, but relax, because you are not alone. You will be always with your instructor at the beginning or with someone else. And have fun, because we are diving because we want to have fun, not because we want to be stressed. So I always say, why you want to dive? You want to suffer? No. You want to have fun? Yes. So let's have fun. And,
yeah, I want to have fun, but still I need my tank to last. Every time I have to end the dive so early, and you guys keep on going, and I'm the one who have to go back to the boat. So where's fun in that?
Yeah. That is something that I always tell them. That is, you don't need to really press and don't get stressed about it, because you are just starting. Of course, your air consumption is going to be better with experience. So just don't put more pressure on yourself, because I can swear that when you give more pressure to yourself, you will spend more air. And I will talk about that at the end with the breathing technique, about how our mind can change our breathing and how we really consume all air.
Absolutely. So when you go down and go, oh my God, I finished 20 bars.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I finished 40 bars. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. So what you need to do is actually put it out of your mind, relax, look, try to have fun with the dive. And then the first thing, or the very important key of having fun, that you will be doing a dive that is within your limits. So when you're having the conditions that you choose for the dive, which is depth or conditions or whatever you're doing with a dive, if it's within your training, within your limits, you will be able to have fun. You will be able to relax. You will be able to actually let your tank last much more.
Yes,
yes,
and there's something that people is like challenging, like, but I have 1 hour, 50 minutes, but 40. It's not about the time. Sometimes it's more about how you are able to enjoy the diving.
Yes, it's not a race, huh?
Yeah.
I know probably your guide or your instructor would have much more air than you, but remember, this guy has been doing it every day for years and years, so he has much more practice. So it only makes sense that now he has better consumption. But when it's for you, just start putting slowly, put some goals for yourself. And Spider's telling us here that you could use PSI. PSI makes numbers really look big numbers, so you feel like you have much more air with you. That's a good trick.
Yeah. It's all about mine, huh?
It is. Master your skills. What about skills that will help you actually having a better air consumption?
Well, I think that something very important is controlled buoyancy.
Buoyancy.
Buoyancy, yes.
What is the common mistakes you find people doing with buoyancy?
Sometimes the position underwater. Sometimes people think that with more weight they will be better underwater, and many times it's not like that, because when you are overweighted, you start to sink. You don't realize that you start to sink, and you can see divers in this position, like trying to dive, but they don't really go. They are trying to go up, but like that, and that doesn't work. And the same with when you don't have enough weight, you don't realize that you start to ascend, and then you fight to go down, and you spend a lot of air trying to fight to get down.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then Omar is telling us trim, which is really a fantastic and actually spot on. As you see in the picture, this is actually Maca and her trim and her.
Yes.
Okay,
so
so being in the trim is actually one of the best things you need to practice and get, and helps you a lot with your air consumption. And the main mistake, the common mistake that you'll find almost every time, whether in PTB, like Spyro is telling us in the course, that is like the performance buoyancy course that you can take, which is exactly designed to adjust your weighting and your trimming, or even when I'm doing my dive master courses with my candidates, every time I find that they are really still diving with so much weight. It's been the habit, maybe in Red Sea, I don't know if it's in the other spots or no, but instructors, especially in teaching open water in the beginning, they really smack their students with lots of weights to make sure they sync with them in the beginning, and they do not go through the proper technique of teaching them and let them really remove some weights as they go forward and forward and forward to know the proper how much actually weight. So it's a very common thing. I tell you, 80% probably of people that come dive with us on the safaris or on dailies, or they come at the center, you guys do use a lot of weight. You need to actually remove so much weight. So step number one for you, if you want to have a better air consumption, go back and revise your weight. How much weight is enough for you? And as Spyro was telling us, less is more. Exactly. The less weights you need, the less weight you're using is actually much better for you. It's going to help you much better with your buoyancy, and then with your air consumption. Having that trim like this is fantastic. This way of diving is a disaster. Stop being that. Go back and go in the trim. One thing we'll have
in the open water course, we really practice the weight check. That is really important. And it's not only for an open water course, it's also for every time that you didn't dive for a while, or you are diving in another country, in a different sea. It's really important that you do the proper weight check before go to light.
Guys, if someone having the mic on with some noise, please make sure to close it. Thank you. Is this your mic? It's your microphone, Maca? No, I think not.
No. I'm completely alone, I swear.
Okay, that's
gonna
fine.
be 3 months almost alone.
So proper weighting, trim is fantastic. Actually, one of the very common mistakes or common problems for having problems on your air consumption, actually knowing your equipment. So if you're having a new BCD, if you're having new regulator, have a new suit, new anything, it actually represents a new or more item or more reason for you to stress. Think about what's happening. Think about this new clip. So when you think more, when you stress more, you consume more.
Yes, exactly. So, and when you are trying a new equipment in the water, you are worried only about the equipment and this is working. I don't know, maybe it was better the old one. And really, there are factors that really affect your air consumption.
Absolutely. Do you remember an example of that, Maca, happened to you? Diving with something for the first time?
Yes, okay. I remember someone trying his dry suit.
Dry suit, yeah.
Yes, but he didn't say that was the dry suit was new.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in a drift dive. He was not with me, he was with another group. And then we jumped and the dry suit just floated completely. But you know, that was, nothing happened, but can be really dangerous because the suit was, had how can I say, the zip was not working. So the guy could really sink with the suit.
Okay.
But, because he was completely full of water. And then we had to stop, and that group had to stop the dive, and the boat had to come for him. And then he didn't want to dive for the next 2 days because he really got. And then after he was like, "Oh, my air consumption is really bad these days. And of course, because you put a stress on yourself. And
yes, exactly. When I go on a safari trips, and then I found one of the clients coming, having this fancy BCD, having this tank, extra tank, camera, strobe, this and that, and then it looks like he's going to war. He's not going to dive. I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be yes, this is having too much stuff with you when you're not used to it, when you know what to do with it, will harm you. Guys, Omar is telling us cameras too. Do you think cameras affect your buoyancy, your air consumption if you're not used to it?
Yes, I think yes, because it's a distractor, let's say. And for example, if you see something there and you really want to get it, you just go fast, and then try to get the position, and then you have to adjust your buoyancy, but you are worried about the camera. So finally, yes, I'm sure that affects.
Exactly, because as the camera is actually taking you, is actually looking for the position, as Maca is saying, and go on, it affects your movement. It makes you move much more than you're used to on having no camera. And then that takes us actually to the second point we're having the presentation, which is movement. And movement here we have a lot to talk about. But first, can you guys look at this lovely puppy? He's actually enjoying the water. Okay. Does this remind you of anything in diving? Because when I see that, I really have clear shots of a lot of my friends. And does it ring a bell with any one of you guys? Yes, Omar, finning, exactly. But in what way? So the first thing, guys, with movement and finning. So please, if you end up diving this way, divers who do like this have to kick all the time to keep their buoyancy or to keep their levels. And then when the fish coming, and then they go up here again. And then, so if you still find yourself doing this, or if you don't know, and if your body is seeing you doing this, you need to stop that. This is like the most terrible thing you would do to yourself in diving, that you keep doing that just to keep this is major problem with buoyancy. So please, this is not diving. You need to be really in trim and using slow and moving slowly and using your buoyancy. So this is the first thing. So slow, steady. And by the way, one of the best guys I've seen in buoyancy and doing everything in trim is actually Spyro. He's with us here, giving a very useful information in the chat. He's a fellow course director, and he's probably sitting on his desk in trim. Okay, he doesn't put his knees on land in anything, doing, you name it, teaching, equipment. So he's really fantastic in this point. So technique. So again, what you can tell us about technique, Maca? What's the best technique we have in movement?
I think that for me, one really important thing is the kick. How you kick, how you place your legs. That can also help you to I don't get the word in English. Optimize your movement.
Optimize, okay.
Yeah. That will optimize your movement. And you know what? When we are moving underwater, we displace water, right? So try to keep everything close to you, like your arms, for example, because sometimes people think that if they move their arms, they are going faster or stuff like that, but it's not like that. With your legs, it's enough, and sometimes when you move more parts of your body, you spend more air.
Absolutely. So being steady, being in trim, being in buoyancy, and moving. Actually, guys, I tell you one of the actually lovely tips I actually like to tell my students. Diving is learning to be lazy. The more lazy you are underwater, the much more you're going to be relaxed, the much more you're going to consume less air, the much more you can do, the much more you're going to enjoy. So please, diving, be lazy. Don't be, people who's super active, super anxious, and okay, run, look at this coral, go back to this, up, down, that. This. It's not gonna. is not really the proper way to do it. So you need to be lazy, you need to be relaxed, you have small kicks, and only this is the push you need to do, and then move slowly with your kicks, whether it's a frog kick, whether it's a normal kick, whether it's a mix of the two, like some people I know have this.
Yeah, I think every person, for example, if we have someone that they really is fine with this movement,
yes.
I cannot tell them like, no, try with frog is better, because maybe for him, for them, it's okay. So I think it's how you feel comfortable. I think that's the best way to dive. You can try different techniques that someone else tells you, your instructor tells you, but finally you have to find your own way.
Absolutely. And then also with the movement, if you find yourself, people will put so much air in the BCD, and then they find themselves and then they have deflate, and then they go down, and then after deflating they go sinking, and then they keep on going. So all this kind of air on the whole dive, you find yourself that you're consuming probably 20 bars on this.
Yes,
all the dive.
Plus the stress that you put on yourself, so you will start to breathe quickly. You will not realize, but you will.
Anida?
Yeah, it's okay. Go on.
Yeah, no, I
Okay, very good. So, breathing techniques, Maca. What do you think of breathing techniques?
Well, breathing techniques for me, breathing is really important. Not only underwater, it's also at surface. That's why sometimes I give some tips.
No, let's before going to the surface, we still have never stop breathing. How people should breathe while diving before actually giving the tips for on surface. So never stop breathing. Yeah. What does that mean?
The never stop. That you you should hold your breath. You have to breathe constantly. Okay, that's the rule number one. Never hold your breath underwater.
Okay.
And then deep and slow breath. Okay. And
what do you mean deep and slow? If I don't know deep and slow, how I'm gonna know deep and slow?
Well, this is a technique that sometimes I give to my students. Sometimes it works for them. There is a technique that is called like the 4 and 6 second rule. Okay, that you breathe for 4 seconds. You count in your head like 4, and then you exhale in 6.
So you use the counting to actually help you knowing how deep and slow your breath are. So you go in, breathe in 4 or 5 counts, and then you breathe out in 6 or 7 counts, depending on how long you.
Yes.
Exactly. That's a very good way of doing it. And when you do that in the beginning, you might feel a little bit uncomfortable, and then after a while, when you actually it's gonna be the second habit, and then you'll find that your air consumption has jumped forward. Great way. Yeah.
Yes, I used to give this technique when I give open water course. I used to give this technique at the end, because first I don't want to put things in their heads. So I prefer that they try different things, and when I see that they are like worried about air consumption and they cannot find their way, I suggest this technique that for me at least works really good. And also for most of them, for some of them, it's like, no, I cannot be focused on the counting, so then don't do it. Or let's try it.
Exactly. It's one way. It's one of doing it. If it works for you, fine. If it's not, then some people would have one more problem, Maca, which is we call skip breathing, which is is this a good thing or no, and why?
No. I don't think it's a good thing because you don't get enough air to your give enough air, oxygen to your brain or to your body. And I had one student, was someone that I was guiding, and he told me about this, and I told him I don't think it's a good idea because blah blah blah. And then he said, no, but someone told me that was really good. I will try it. And then after he told me, I got really dizzy when I was underwater. I start to really feel like my body has not enough air.
Yes, exactly. Why? Because when you do skip breathing, when you're not taking a deep breath, you're still breathing from the dead air that you have in your gauges or in your. So you're not getting enough oxygen actually. So you're getting a lot of CO2. So after a while, you start having headaches and start having not clear vision. So that's why we really recommend of having deep, slow breath that you can actually have enough oxygen in with your breathing. So that's very important. And then let's look and have some question in chat going on here. So yes, Derek was asking about how to get the proper how to know the proper weight. And then I think Spyro and Sammy are doing a good job answering actually this lovely question. So yes, there is a good way of doing it, and that's good. Okay, let's move on to your breathing exercises on the surface, Maca. How would you do that?
Okay, it's basically the same that we do underwater, but we do at surface. And first of all, I try to explain or try to give the idea that for us is important breathing at surface and underwater.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, when you are stressed, when you are scared about something, when you are angry, when you are many things, they always people say, stop and breathe, stop and breathe. So in diving is the same important thing. So I try to for me breathing, and I think that it's like when you connect with yourself, when you connect with everything what you want to do, you always, when you think about it, you start to breathe. And if you pay attention to your breath, you will realize that when you think about something nice, your breath is really calm. When you are thinking about something that is not nice, your breath immediately you start to feel it. Okay, so for example, when we are underwater, I try to tell to my students like, okay, let's try something at surface. Let's breathe. And you can imagine, for example, like that you are breathing a color, then you are exhaling the color, and they start to create a cycle in their heads. And when they are in the underwater, they start to just repeat the same. And I also add this technique, this 6-second technique, and they start to do this underwater. And really, I have a really good feedback about it, because they really feel like after it's automatic. It's automatic, and they are just super relaxed underwater, and they really can enjoy the environment. And they don't, if the air consumption is not the best, it's like, it's okay for the next time. And it's very important to clarify for all divers that the air consumption is something that you get with practice. Like everything, you can master everything, but you really need practice. And you will not, and not because you consume more air, you are a bad diver. It's not about air consumption. When we talk about the air consumption, we just want you to be responsible with your movements, and we just want you a better diver.
So the first technique on the surface is actually also breathing in 4 and 6 and 5 and 7. That's correct?
Yes.
And second, you have another one so that people will try on the surface?
Yes, there is another one that you can also try that is called belly breathing. Okay, because if you
belly breathing.
belly breathing.
Okay, explain how that works.
Yes, for example, when you breathe in by your mouth, instead to inflate your thorax, try doing it directly to your belly. So it's, and go directly to your belly. And then that is also a technique that helps a lot to relax, and you can also do it underwater. But I do this technique because really, even you can do it even if you are stressed for something, or you just want to relax. It also helps to sleep when you cannot sleep. This belly breath works really well.
So lovely. So counting your breath in and out, belly breathing. Correct. Do you have a third trick?
No, the other thing that I said was this, like try to imagine a color coming in and the same color going out, and just try to, you know that we can play a lot with our imagination, and you cannot
Absolutely,
imagine
yes.
how our imagination can influence our mind and our breathings and our feelings, and it's amazing.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, if you have any questions about how to, or problems you're facing with your air consumption, or you have seen people that really do something super good, having super good air consumption, or super bad, or what to do, you can actually throw in some questions in chat you'll have between me and Maca, and even with people who are having with us on the group. You'll definitely have a good chit chat going on. So what do you think? If you have any but actually, I'll ask someone who have been, when you try to do your dive master or even going pro, did you feel that your consumption is different? So for example, once you get the push, you know what I mean? And then you have started guiding in your first earlier careers, and then suddenly your air consumption is better or less? That's actually an interesting question.
Yes, for me, there is a point where it's like, okay, when I stopped pressing myself, my air consumption just got fantastic. It was like, because I was too worried all the time, oh, I'm guiding, if my divers have better air consumption than me, oh, it's gonna be a disaster, blah, blah, blah. And then I stopped, like, okay, I'm learning, and I would just will be kind with myself, and I will just stop this stress thing in my head, and really it was like magic. My air consumption was much better.
Fantastic. If you guys, someone have a similar story happened to him when he started diving, he can actually tell us, or can raise his hand, and we can put his mic up and tell us about his experience, and how actually once you started guiding or starting dive master or something like this. Fain Yusuf, Zuzu, you can put your mic and tell us the story. Stop guiding, save air. Yeah, that's a good.
Usually Sharky tells us that we've got to complete the 1 hour dive for the guests, and like when I started guiding, I usually came like 35 minutes down the dive, and usually hiding my hand and telling him I have 20-30 bars and I'm leaving. So I choose or pick the person that's slowest on air in the group, and I need to go do the safety stop with them, and then I leave the rest of the group, and I go and surface on the boat because I am out of air. And another time I was teaching them a nice
why do you think that's happening, Zuzu? Normally you have good consumption, but why, when this actually you put on such experience, your air consumption have this huge difference?
Because I start thinking of so many other factors. I start analyzing more. I feel the responsibility of the people. So I don't know, maybe when you get used to it, you start also consuming air normally. But at the beginning, definitely, it makes a huge difference when I started guiding.
Actually, that's really have stress written all over it. So yes, you're stressing about lots of things, So definitely your consumption gets really, really bad. And then with experience and with more practice, you will find it will go back to normal. And then exactly, that's what happens. So
then at least you won't have to leave your students and get out of the water when giving them a DPV course. Becky and Dina. I was once giving Becky and Dina a course.
Yeah.
And then probably I had 10 bars left. So in the safety stop, I took my scooter and I left all 3 of you guys in the water.
Yes, exactly. Derek having a
I cannot believe you just aired that.
Yeah. Wait, Becky, because Derek is having a good question. So is there a range of dives in which you believe that divers become better at breathing and trimming? Actually start with a lot of the relaxed and easy spots that you can go to and don't have to stress about depth, you don't have to stress about currents, you don't have to stress about all these things, and then practice. Okay, practice how it's going to, how the trim is going with you, how is the proper weighting is going with you, how is the breathing techniques is happening. Okay, so you really need to start in a very good environment and then practice and see what's working with you. What might work with you, it's not going to work with me. If, for example, Spyro was writing, I saw that he started having his tongue put in the regulator to make the flow of air coming in a little bit less. This is a very common way to do it. I didn't like it at all. It didn't work for me. I always felt dizzy from it, and it didn't. The feeling was not really what I wanted. What worked for me was counting. So I really did the counting with the breathing in and tried to have a much slower and much longer flow of inhale and exhale. So you will need to find what will work with you from all what we give as advice. There is no clear yes and no. So practice on which one you're having of note, and then it will. It's going to work with that.
And something that I would like to say is like, don't let the air consumption make you feel like you are a bad diver, or don't let one dive that you had a bad air consumption make you feel like your air consumption is bad, because sometimes you just have a complicated day in your head and you will reflect that in the air consumption. So don't let this thing make you feel like you are not a good diver or your air consumption is really bad.
Yes. So let's see. Hisham is telling us one of his friends have another problem, that when he descends to 30 meters or more, he starts suffering from a bad headache, and it starts to go away when he starts ascending. He has high blood pressure sometimes. Anyone can advise. That's a good one. But that's not a consumption. That's probably what's saying blood pressure issues or that. But my question is, that he get clearance from doctors for diving and doing this? He needs to do that. Actually, he needs to really get a clearance from his doctor that he can, with his condition of blood pressure, that he can be diving safely and going to this depth. This is way more than a consumption issue. Okay, do we have Kamil and Fadi Nail in the group here or no? And I didn't see.
Do we have what?
Yes, sure.
So Fadi is here. So Fadi is actually always diving with Kamil, and they are really good buddies. And then tell us, and both of you are good divers. So what's happening with the consumption between you guys, and why there is a little bit of different in comparison?
There's always 10 bar. Kamil is always above me in 10 bars, something like that.
Yeah.
Because he's more relaxed in his dives than my side. I like to move a lot. So that's probably why I run out of air before him in every dive. And sometimes, of course, the stress puts on it.
So basically, you guys have same. Both of you are athletics. Both of you are good divers, but you end up having less air consumption than Kamil, probably from stress. Again, guys, the microphone مش عارف المسلسل بتاع مين ده، بس let's Gorab, what is your problem with your consumption when you started diving?
I can definitely say that when I started diving professionally and started being responsible for divers in the water, guiding them, responsible for their safety, the stress definitely affected my air consumption. And I was surprised that my air consumption became much worse than I expected, even though it was improving more and more with more diving experience through my dive master course. But on dives, when I was guiding and leading, my air consumption would be much worse than my norm. And definitely the stress of the responsibility plays a factor in that. And talking with other dive masters and dive professionals, the experience seems to be quite common at the beginning of your professional career in diving, that you have that dip in your improvement in air consumption.
Okay, fantastic. Rami, I think you have your hand up. You need to share something with us.
Yes, I do. One of the things one of my previous instructors did with me was a incremental challenges. So he realized that my breathing, like let's say I would come up with, let's say 50 bar when he's still on 100. He would say, all right, the next time to challenge myself to come up with 60, and and a few dives after that up to 70, and so on and so forth until it got improved. Give yourself a chance to incrementally work on yourself by the mental state and obviously all the other stuff that you guys already spoke about, and slowly you'll get there.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I work with my dive masters with is actually they're not allowed to use more than 2/3 of the tank. The final third is not for them. So this is also the same as Sami is saying, that every time you go out for 40 bars, make it 60, make it 70, and so on, and move up. Wasif, you have something? Also, Rami had his hand raised. If he's around, Rami Wasif.
Yes, Sharky. Yeah. So I also wanted to share an experience, like seconding all the guides here, that once in Brothers, I remember Ghurab was guiding and we had a good group. But once we jumped off the Zodiacs, one of our guests had his mask off. So I noticed that, and I was like closing the group, and I noticed that, so I went up to help him with the mask. And then as we went down, the current put us like a bit above the reef, so we had to fight it for a little. And then by the time, it was really embarrassing, like till we reached Ghurab, and then like 10 or 20 minutes on, and I had like 50 bars, like fighting the current and going up and down and everything. And it was so embarrassing at the time. And I was like, I pointed to Ghurab and like, okay, I want to go out. And then a hammerhead came by. So, okay, shut up. Here's a hammerhead. And then, okay, Ghurab, excuse me, I want to go out. That was so embarrassing at the time, but now it's fun, I guess.
That's correct.
So, yeah.
Lovely. So guys, do you have more questions or actually some experience you would like to share with us? I think me and Maca had covered the points that we wanted to say. Yusuf, you're deciding to go with 2 tanks, khalas? Okay.
5 more time.
Okay, guys, if you have any suggestions for the Scuba Clinic, more topics, we have a couple of ones in mind, but also we'd actually love to have your ideas on lovely topics that we would love us to discuss in the next Scuba Clinic sessions. So tell us, and then we'd have all your feedback is lovely, all your ideas and everything is fantastic. If anyone would love to be a co-host and join us and share his experience and talks, that would be also lovely. We're open for all that, so keep that coming, keep everything coming. And I think that all. If you guys have no more questions, I think I know, Spyro, you are. I know you. That's coming without you saying, man. Okay, thank you guys for joining. It's really always makes us so much fun for having everyone with us today. Thank you, Maca, for the lovely session.
No, thank you to you for inviting me.
Am I missing question? 1 second. Consume more in shallow water rather than in depth. Really? That's you, Fadi, or what?
Yes, exactly.
I have a friend.
When the oceanic is there, probably.
No, that's only when you go on for the oceanic, Fedi. That's probably the reason. You're expecting the oceanic to show up, and then that's why you finish your air. That's the only explanation. Okay, thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you, Spyro and Sammy, for the lovely answers and interact on the chat. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and looking to see you guys next week. Thank you, Maca.